Welcome in again to the Gramblers podcast, episode 2 this time. Cody Graham along with Aaron Graff, and it has been a hell of a weekend in sports with the NBA playoffs and the PGA Championship. So exciting that Aaron's dog is even joining us for episode 2. What's going on, Aaron?
Yeah, I guess this is our first guest on the show. This is Maddox, so named after Greg Maddox.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Really?
oh, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I do like Greg Maddox, and he didn't spend his whole career with the Cubs, so I guess that's okay.
Yeah, I mean he was a Brave, Padre, Dodger, and this guy is also called Mad Dog at times, which was Greg Maddox's nickname. So, that's completely fitting. So
Hopefully it doesn't get too mad. Hopefully you hit on your bets this weekend and you got some new toys for Maddox.
Well, I did not hit on my bets this weekend. I bet a lot of golf. As you know, as the PGA Championship, we saw Phil Mickelson win, 50 years old, the lefty. Love Phil. I personally like Phil. I know a lot of people kind of hit or miss on him, but
My favorite thing about Phil is he is a degenerate gambler just like you and me. So I was very happy to see him win.
I didn't know that. But I'm a
Oh,
lefty.
you got to read the stories.
Yeah, I'm a lefty. So, okay. I think Maddox is leaving. He doesn't like Phil all that much. So, but yeah, Phil Mickelson won. I mean, the odds were probably pretty astronomical there. So if you
200
bet,
to 1.
yeah, if you bet on Phil Mickelson, congratulations to you. Hopefully you put quite a bit of money on that and maybe had him in top five. But I was going to steer clear of Phil Mickelson pretty much no matter what. I'm not necessarily one of those guys that thinks, oh, he should just go to the senior tour. I mean, very clearly he showed this week that he can still win on the normal PGA tour. So I was excited for him. At the same time, my guy Joaquin Neiman was in it going into today, and then like got a double bogey on the second hole, which was a par five and a hole that a lot of guys were posting their birdies on. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm pretty much out of it. I know I mentioned Victor Hovland last weekend on the show. Did not bet him at all. His head-to-heads were he's a top tier guy, so his head-to-heads were against like Dustin Johnson, who he would have won. It didn't appeal to me as a bet anyway. And Dustin Johnson, missed the cut, but
It's tough to bet against Dustin Johnson, though.
tough to bet against Dustin Johnson. And then my sleeper, so Joel Damon, he had a couple good runs where he's just, I mean, at the front nine on Saturday, he posted, I think, like a 31 or something like that, or very low score. And he, fell apart on the back nine. And I had him top 10 and top 30. And at one point today, he was top 10. I was like, hey, stop the count. There's my bet, because that would have been a pretty big payout for me. And he got a couple bogeys after that. A couple other guys were getting good scores. And then all of a sudden he was like tied for 46th. And I said, he's not got a chance even at the top 30 at this point. So I had a pretty bad weekend. I guess that's how these shows start sometimes. I guess people are going to know not to listen to me on this show. So
Well, hey, our goal is to not go, well, I guess our goal is to go 100% on our picks, but we're not going to do that. Our goal is to be around 60, 65%. Just get more right than we get wrong, and hopefully educate you on why betting is so fun. But we are going to tell you when we're wrong. And Aaron was wrong on his golf picks this week. I was wrong on my pick for the NBA playing game. Had the Lakers covering the spread. They won the game, but they did not cover. I did, though, bet on the Lakers live money line when they were, I think, plus 200. I gave you a text, Aaron, at halftime, and they were down 13. And I was like, there's no way the Lakers are losing that game. I never was in doubt of them losing that game, even then when Curry was going off in the first half and the Warriors had that stifling defense. Anthony Davis was nowhere to be found, and LeBron just looked terrible. I still thought the Lakers were going to come out on top, and they did.
part of my trouble betting golf this weekend too was it's a major championship, and major championships get a little bit more hype. And as a bettor, I kind of folded to the I guess, dumb bets that I typically almost always talk myself out of. I did a handful of parlays, head-to-head parlays where this guy's going to beat this guy's going to beat that guy. And then obviously, like I said, those top 10, top 30, and then overall winner picks, which again are lottery tickets anyway. So I really can't be all too mad or surprised, I guess, that I lost those, because it's hard to hit the 5-leg parlays or the 3-leg parlays or the, 6 shooters, or, pick the one guy out of 6. So there's a lot of different golf bets you can do. And especially because it is a major championship, it gets more exciting. Like, oh, I think it's going to go down like this. And then I put more money out there, and then I kind of look at it and I'm like, I don't know, after like the first day, and it's one of your guys is about to miss the cut kind of thing. So that's just how it happens sometimes. So.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen, especially when you do parlays. I'm glad you brought that up too, because our show today is going to be jam-packed with a lot of info. Of course, we have the NBA playoffs going on, a lot of game 2 games coming up. I'll go over the Monday night and the Tuesday night action. Then we're going to hand it off to Aaron. He's going to talk about parlays and probably why you should stay away from them. I know FanDuel and DraftKings, with those sports books opening up, we see a lot of parlays being shared on the internet of how much money people are winning. We share on our Facebook page about some of these crazy parlays that hit, but more times than not, they don't hit. So we're going to dive into that. Also, too, I'm really interested in is how Aaron and I bet on 2 sports we really don't know anything about. So we'll get to all of that and more. But first, Aaron, I want to hand it over to you to talk about the next PGA tournament, which is the Charles Schwab Challenge. And I understand you have a few guys you like going to this one.
Yeah. So it is a shorter, medium short course, I guess, about 7,200 yards. That's a big thing for me with betting golf, is there are guys who typically do well at long courses, do well at short courses. Last week I mentioned Daniel Berger was probably the favorite I would bet against in the PGA Championship. He did work himself into making the cut. However, he was over par pretty much every day except that Friday, and he did not have a good overall showing. So I wasn't too surprised. He actually won this event last year. I like Daniel Berger a lot as a golfer. Wouldn't be overly surprised if he's well into contention, even though he didn't do all that well this weekend. My favorite guy this weekend coming up, and it's kind of troublesome because I don't really know for sure if he's playing yet or not. With it just coming off a major tournament, a lot of guys like to sit out a weekend or two. Hideki Matsuyama sat out, I think, 3 because he went back to Japan after he won the Masters. So I don't know if he's playing, but I like Corey Connors out of Canada. He's been golfing really well recently. He's another guy who's good at long courses, good at short courses. He did well at the RBC Heritage, I believe about a month ago anyway, which is also another shorter course, about 7,100 and change. He's been playing very well. His one career PGA win is in the state of Texas, which this tournament's in Texas. Weirdly enough, it's kind of like Rory McIlroy does well in Florida tournaments overall, statistically. So I think you kind of run into these patterns where a guy does well and he does well and he does well, and then finally he gets the win. It's kind of like we just saw with Jordan Spieth. He was doing well at a ton of tournaments, working his way into contention, and then he won down in Texas the weekend before the Masters anyway. So I think Connors is pretty due. He's been showing that he's in contention, and if he plays, I will probably place a little bit of a bet on him, whether it be head to head, top 10 winner overall. I don't know. You're going to probably see him do well if he does play. So
I know last week you were talking about you usually, when you bet golf, you kind of stay away from winners, outright winners. Yep. Is there a reason why? Is it maybe because, Phil came out of nowhere and sometimes you just see that too often in golf?
Yeah, it's a lottery ticket bet. I mean, it's basically the same as doing a 5-leg parlay. I mean, when you have, 100 guys competing for one spot, it becomes very tricky to win. I had Xander Schauffele, for example, at the Phoenix Open the same weekend as the Super Bowl, and he was leading through 3 days. He was tied with Spieth, and basically, if he would have finished 2 under on that final day, where he was posting like 7 under, 5 under, in that range. If he was 2 under on the final day, I believe he would have tied for the lead. 3 under would have won him the tournament. I had good chunk of money on him. I ran my spreadsheet. I was feeling excited that whole weekend. I thought, hey, Xander's definitely going to win this. And he choked. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, hey, if I put that same amount of money on him to finish top 5, he finished tied for a second. If I would have put it on him top 5, I would have had a heavy payout. Okay, top 5 still rare. Okay, if I would have put it on top 10, I still would have had a heavy payout. So that's why I kind of like the top 10s. And then if I would have bet him just head to head outright, that's almost even money. And I would have ran away with it. I mean, Brooks Koepka won that tournament. Brooks is another guy who might get paired against Xander in head to head bets. He was not the guy though. So if I would have just bet, hey, Xander head to head, he's going to win this, I would have had a great weekend. Instead, because I bet him to win it outright, he didn't, and I lost that bet, and that money's just gone. So
it's almost like, you ever see those posts? Are you going to take the layup for $500, the free throw for $1,000, or the half court shot for $100,000? Right? Yeah. Most of us are going to pick the half court shot, and we're probably going to walk away with nothing. Where you could, in the free throw, could have walked away with pretty good odds of getting 1,000, or get the layup and just walk out $500 and put all of that into a top 10 golf bet the next weekend. So
it's a phrase I typically like to say is it's a higher percentage or a lower percentage play. So it was a lower percentage play to bet on Joaquin Niemann, to win this tournament. It was a lower percentage play to bet on Phil Mickelson to win this tournament. Sure, it worked out if you did it, but in general, hey, if you would have bet Phil top 40, you would have still probably gotten him at plus money, I think, because he wasn't expected to finish in the top 40. There was question if he was going to be around at the cut going into the tournament. So
how crazy is that? If I were to tell you before the PGA Championship, a major, that Phil Mickelson was not going to only be in contention, but win, and Dustin Johnson was going to miss the cut, like, you would think I'm crazy.
I would have probably given you 50-1 odds, and I'm not a professional book, so I can't afford to give anybody 50-1 odds. But if you would have told me, hey, Phil's going to finish top 15 or so, and DJ's not going to make the cut, and who else? I mean, Justin Thomas didn't make the cut. I mean,
he was a favorite, right, to be in contention this tournament. He was up there.
And I'm not super surprised. He does better in shorter courses. This course is long, and super windy. But yeah, if you would have said, parlay all that, if you would have said Phil's going to win, DJ's going to miss the cut, JT's going to miss the cut, Daniel Berger is going to do bad, but make the cut, all this, I would have said, get out of here. I don't want to do a podcast with you anymore. Here we are.
I alluded to seeing all these images of folks winning big money on parlays. I have this one pulled up. A guy did a 3-team parlay. He had Kristaps Porzingis first basket in game 1, Duncan Robinson first basket for the Heat and the Bucks, and Kyrie Irving first basket for Celtics and Nets. This guy bet 200.
Oh, my thing froze. Can you hear me?
So you were talking about, you did a parlay on the golf tournament this weekend, the PGA Championship, and it didn't really work out for you. And you said that you kind of got suckered into making what you call a bad bet. Why are parlays bad bets?
Yeah, I apologize. You kind of cut out there for a minute. I don't know if it was my internet or your internet, but I knew what you were going to say, though, the $200 parlay of first buckets. And I think that was the one. Did you post that one on our Facebook page?
Yes, I did. Sports betting can change your life. Guy won $91,000 on taking 3 first bucket in the game 1 of the NBA playoffs in a couple different games. And so, I mean, why when you see that, and as someone that doesn't bet will look at that and say, wow, like, this can change my life. That's more than I make in a year, right? Like, let's go put $200. This looks easy.
Yeah.
Why are parlays so hard, and why is it viewed as a sucker's bet?
Yeah, it's funny with that specific one. A friend texted me and said, "Aaron, I can't believe it. You won 90 grand." And I was like, what are you talking about?" And I saw that you posted that on our Facebook page.
Yeah, we did not. That was not our bet.
Right. It was not.
Someone else won that.
It was not ours. We like
I
to.
wish I could take credit for that.
Yeah, I wish I could too. Strictly just the odds. It becomes heavy against your favor. It becomes that lottery ticket. There's a reason that it has such a payout is because it's so rare. And a big reason I hate that particular parlay is when you bet first bucket, those odds are already in your favor to where if you would have just bet, Duncan Robinson to get the first bucket, you probably would have gotten like $800 for the 200.
900.
Yeah. Something like, something
Yep.
crazy. And when you parlay that, it's like you watch the first two happen in the first two games, and then you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that third one because now that might not happen, kind of thing. I mean, betting a first bucket, I don't typically do that. I sometimes like first touchdown in NFL. I think that's a more realistic prop. NBA, tip could go either way, obviously, and then pass whatever. I've won one of those. It was plus 600 or so, and I was ecstatic. I've bet it probably a dozen times or so, and I've won one of them. So that's 1 out of 12. Where if I would have parlayed 2 of them, again, that's just losing the money that I won on that one particular bet. So I mean, even if you take like even money, had like, okay, the baseball bets, for example, those are usually pretty close lines because anything can happen in a particular baseball game. So even if you take, 6 baseball games, and you bet 6 different teams to win, odds are you're not going to go 6 for 6. And you're going to, if you would have just stuck to the one, your favorite one, put $100 on that, you might win 100 back. You put $100 on 6-leg parlay, you need all of those things to happen to get any money back. Otherwise, you're losing money. Parlays are kind of a way that they say Vegas, it keeps the odds in their favor and it makes them, they're going to win long-term on parlays. So, and honestly, Vegas loves, and it sounds kind of counterintuitive, Vegas loves when people hit parlays like that because so many people bet them that they pay that out and then they can advertise it as, look at this better bet this, you should try something like that too. And then 200,000 other dummies, try to post their, this guy's going to get first bucket in this game, this guy's first bucket in this game, and this team's going to win or something like that.
And there's no analysis that goes into that. I'm sure you can find numbers for each team. Oh, Giannis scores 35% of the first basket for the Bucks. But I mean, there's no, would control be the word? I flunked science. Would control or variables a thing that changes, right? There's no control in that just because we don't know who's winning the tip every game. It could be different depending on matchups, who gets the ball first, on the road, at home. There's so many things that go into it. Is this team going to double Giannis in the first play? Like it's hard enough to win a game, right? It's so hard to win a first bucket. And now with FanDuel and DraftKings, there's so many things you can bet on. I mean, there's things that you can bet on I didn't even know you could bet on, right? Like you can bet on player minutes. You can bet on everything. And it's just crazy to think about how far betting has come and how many things are open to the public to put money on. I mean, I remember COVID last year, you can bet on the weather, like what's going to be outside. And it's even more complicated when it comes to sports betting.
Yeah, things like that, I think definitely just throw out the law of averages. You know that LeBron James is going to score at least 15 points in a game. If you're betting him on getting the first bucket as a pass first player, that's probably a pretty rare feat that he gets. He's the greatest player in my generation. I think most people would either have him at, top 3 greatest all time. I think anybody who doesn't say that is probably just a LeBron hater anyway. But he's going to get 15 points. Is he going to get the first 2 points or 3 points of the game? I would never touch it. It's not
all up in the air.
But I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
again, it goes back to, hey, if you bet Phil Mickelson this weekend, good for you. If you bet Duncan Robinson and the other two guys to get the first bucket in a parlay, good for you. That's great. And I'm jealous of it. I really am. I wish I could pull off stuff like that, but that becomes very hard to do. I have hit, when I was first getting into sports betting, I think the biggest parlay I've ever hit is 6 legs. That was very exciting because that was, whatever, like 12-1 kind of thing. Exciting, obviously. The biggest bet I've won all time was a 2-leg parlay. I went bigger on it. And this is, I guess, to the flip side of why I sometimes like parlays, I guess, is basically a parlay is going all in on every single bet and then taking the winnings from that first bet and then going all in on that second bet. If you win the second bet, going all in on the third bet, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're kind of an all-in type of guy, which I usually am, is, hey, I find that one thing I really like and I push heavy on it. Well, I might find 2 things that I really like and I want to push heavy on both of them. Do I just split the money 50-50? It statistically would be better odds for me. But again, it kind of boils down to what I talked about unit betting last weekend. I don't necessarily like that idea. So there are times where I like a 2-leg parlay to bet big. Much more than that, I think it's what they say. It's a sucker's bet. So
Now, do you like when it comes to parlay? I'm sure you can answer this by saying it depends on the game, the match. Do you like to do same game parlays, or do you like to do, you mentioned you put all your winnings into the next game that you really like? So you like to bet like on a Monday game and a Tuesday game in a parlay, or do you like to bet the same game?
I don't like the same game a lot unless I know, okay, I'm predicting a team over under and then a team spread kind of thing. I might like something like that, especially NFL. NFL, there's a lot more that goes into it week to week where you can kind of fully give analysis to, okay, the weather's pretty bad. The over under set at 50 points. There's snow on the ground. They're probably not going to get to 50 points. But on the flip side, this team is a warm weather team, things like that. As far as same game parlays where you take in a bunch of player props, LeBron James over under 25 points, Anthony Davis over under 25 points, Giannis, we'll just say it's Lakers Bucks, over under 25 points kind of thing. I don't like to do same game parlays like that at all, because if LeBron is scoring, that takes away a shot from Anthony Davis. So, I mean, if I thought, okay, I think LeBron is going to get the over, Giannis is going to get the over because they're on 2 different teams, and then maybe like the team over, if the sports book even let me do that. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the sports book is smart enough to see that, okay, if you're betting over for every single player, you're obviously just going to tie in the team over, and then you're going to just reap a higher payout that, if you can do basic math. But no, I don't
Some
like
of us can.
I don't like same game parlays in that sense, if that makes sense.
No, don't totally. I'm glad I asked that because there's been times where there's a game I really like and I like 2 odds in it, in which I'll get to with a game on the docket, a game 2 for the NBA playoffs. I like to do a parlay in coming up. I mean, did you have any other thoughts on parlays as a whole? Obviously, Vegas loves them because there are a lot of suckers out there that will continue to chase parlays where the odds are just so tough, and they do advertise the hell out of it when a guy hits. It's so easy to find these tweets or these Facebook posts or Instagram posts of guys hitting parlays because FanDuel is going to advertise it. DraftKings is going to advertise it because they want more subscribers. They want more people betting. They want more of that and more of that. Whereas people like us that bet more often, we're kind of staying away from parlays.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'll say is that there have been times where I'll text a bunch of games to a buddy or something. I'll text you, hey, I like the Spurs -3, the Bulls +5, the Cavaliers +16, and so on. And there have been times where I'll get every single one of those right. And I kind of think to myself, well, hey, if I would have put it in a parlay, one of my least favorite words in betting is almost, or would have, or should have, or could have. Hindsight's 2020. So yeah, if I could go back to Wednesday night and bet on Phil Mickelson to win the PGA Championship and parlay that with the first buckets and put $2 on it, even, I'd be rich. I'd be ecstatic. So at the same time, that's hindsight. That's 2020. So I don't get mad when, okay, I would have been right on 7 NBA games tonight. And if I would have parlayed them, I would have been cashing in the bank. I would have never made that bet. So I think that's one thing that, bettors got to try to keep their head, because there will be times where that happens. There will be times where, oh, if I would have made that bet, I would have made bank. That doesn't mean chase the next bet or chase the next parlay, because the odds go down of you getting it that next night. Law of averages, you might get it on Monday night. You're not going to get it on Tuesday night. You missed out on Monday. Tuesday, pick maybe one game you don't like. Maybe bet against yourself. Maybe bet against what you're thinking on that, because odds are you're going to run into a brick wall at that point if you would have went 7 for 7. And maybe that 8th game is where you should probably just bet the opposite of what you think.
I like that, because to piggyback off your point, during the regular season with the NBA, I always try to find 3 games I really want to bet on. And in the days of the NBA season, let's say there's 100 nights that I bet, I'm probably getting all 3 right 6 or 7 times. There's no way I can pinpoint those nights that I'm going to, I should definitely parlay this one. So there's been times where I got all 3 right. I didn't parlay it. I've never said to myself, you should have parlayed that one, because the next 6 nights, you're going to parlay 3 games and you're all of them wrong. You may go 2 for 1, 1 and 2, but you're never going to go 3-0 until you don't bet it. And then you're going to go 3-0. So it's one of those things where I'm with you on that. I don't usually do parlays a whole lot. However, when I do a parlay, it's usually same game. It's usually a spread and an over-under. And so it's usually a 2-legger, just those 2 bets. And that will bring me to my Bucks Heat bet that I really like. Bucks Heat game 2 Monday night. Game 1 was a thriller. And that's not the only game that's been awesome. Almost every game this weekend has been really fun to watch, but especially that Bucks Heat one. They have history, obviously. They played in the semifinals last year. The Heat upset them in 5 games. The Bucks make a big change, so they add Drew Holiday. The Heat make a couple of changes. They lose Kelly Olynyk. They lose Derek Jones. So 2 guys that really gave Giannis fits. Giannis had a rough game, especially at the free throw line. He always does that. The Bucks had a rough shooting night. They were 1 for 12 on wide open threes. I don't think that is going to be a trend, but I also think Miami is going to watch the tape and realize how many wide open threes they let open. That game went to overtime, and it was only 109-107 was the final score. So it's 2 great defensive teams. Eric Spoelstra has always been known for having great defensive teams. The Bucks have a defensive player of the year in Giannis, 2 great perimeter defenders in Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. So I really do think that most of these games will go under. The total right now is at 221.5. I love the under. And because of how bad Milwaukee shot in game 1, I do think Miami makes some adjustments, but I do think the Bucks shoot a little bit better. I do like the Bucks to cover the 4.5 spread.
Yeah, I like the Bucks to cover the spread, definitely there. It's another kind of law of averages thing. Okay, the first game they came out a little shaky. Maybe not shaky. Maybe shaky is a bad word for it, but they won a close game kind of thing. I think that law of averages, the better team prevails. I think they are the better team. I don't necessarily love the over/under. I feel like the Bucks put up a lot of points in the last couple of years to where their defense is definitely better. I agree with you there. My general rule of thumb with over/under for NBA games is if it's a good and a bad team, hammer the over. If it's 2 good teams, take the under. I think they are 2 good teams. So in general, I would agree with you there. And then if it's 2 bad teams, steer clear of it. Don't touch it. So I would probably ride with you on that parlay. I like it. So
yeah, should be a good one though. Miami is just not the same team they were last year. but you still got Jimmy, still got Bam, and you still got Spo. So they're going to play hard. They're going to compete, and it's going to be a fun series. I had the Bucks in 6. I think they do win in 6. I think they win on Monday. They take both games at home. Miami comes back, wins a game or two in Miami, and then the Bucks close it out. Going on to the next game, Portland, Denver. That first game was the largest gap of the weekend, and Portland won 123 to 109. So it wasn't a huge, I mean, that's not a blowout in today's NBA. Denver had a big lead in the third quarter. Dame went off. NBA is just all about runs. It happens. I really like Denver to make it to the Western Conference Finals before Jamal Murray went down. I alluded to that on our first episode. No Jamal Murray. I think Portland has a chance to upset them. I'm still taking Denver in 7. And I do think Denver comes back and has a big game. Their spread's only 1.5. I usually don't like betting spreads when they're under 2. So I'll just take the money line. I'll just take Denver to win. The money line's up minus 120. The spread's at minus 110. There's not really a huge difference in that. If I'm betting $100, I'm okay, winning $80 instead of $90. So I'll take the money line on that. The over/under, I'm not going to touch. One of my rules, I don't touch over/unders in games that Damian Lillard's playing, just because that guy has gym range. As soon as he walks into the arena, he can shoot from anywhere, and I won't be shocked if Dame goes for 40 or 50 on any given night. And then, of course, Jokic can do the same thing. So I do like Denver to come back. I think that series is going 7. It's going to be a back-and-forth series. Denver had a great run last year. Even without Jamal Murray, they're still a hell of a team, and Jokic is the MVP. There's no way I see them going down 0-2. I'm hammering Denver on the money line.
I gotcha. It's kind of interesting too, because Portland last year, I think they beat the Lakers in game 1. And then after that, the Lakers won the next 4. So Portland, to me, I wouldn't touch the game. Denver, the past couple of years have been pretenders to me. The Spurs took them 7 games a couple of years ago. Derek White made Paul Millsap look like his son with that dunk. And that was actually a moment where I loved Derek White. I know you don't like him anymore. Not a big Derek White fan as a Spurs fan. Just think he's a good role player at best. And they kind of look at him as, he's going to be the next Manu Ginobili at times, it feels like. So I wouldn't ever touch Denver personally. I know they kind of surpassed my expectation last year. I did openly admit, okay, they are contenders now. Obviously, the Lakers got the best of them. Portland, I don't know. I mean, I think history tends to repeat itself, so I don't think Portland gets out of the first round in general. But then, you look back a couple of years ago where Dame hit that crazy shot and Paul George called it a bad shot. They surpassed the Thunder. So I do agree that series would go 7. At that point, I don't know who wins, and I probably wouldn't bet it personally. So,
yeah, this is a tough series. Like I said, if Jamal Murray was playing, I think Denver wins it in 5 or 6. But without him, they're a little bit more even matched. Denver doesn't have a guard really that can go shot for shot with Lillard, but they still got the MVP and Jokic. I still believe in Denver, especially what they did last year, to kind of come out on top. Another one I really like too, and I kind of teased it at the start when I told you that Lakers Golden State playing game. I texted you at halftime saying Lakers down 13, man. They're plus 200 on the money line. Go for it. Lakers lose game 1 at Phoenix. They looked horrible. I think this is now a point where Vegas may be overreacting a little bit. Lakers are plus 110 to win this series. I still think they win it in 6. Chris Paul hurt his shoulder. It seems like he's going to be fine. He doesn't plan on missing game 2. He was still a big factor in that game, despite not being able to dribble the ball from his right hand. And that one shot he put up over Kyle Kuzma from the elbow that was leaning back, almost looked like a shot put shot he still made. Anthony Davis was non-existent, just like he was in Golden State series. That kind of worries me. LeBron didn't look great. His flopping is on key, though. I mean, that flop led to a little scuffle on the sideline. I'm not betting against playoff LeBron. I was surprised, though, and very happy for DeAndre Ayton because he dominated the paint in that game. And I said last week that he was going to get bullied by Andre Drummond. He did not. So I was wrong on that. Ayton showed up. He played like a veteran. But I can't pick against the Lakers, and I'm willing to lose a bet going hard on them plus 110 in the first round after coming off a championship season.
That's the thing. LeBron doesn't lose in the first round.
Has he ever? He's never.
I don't think he has. He got close.
This is not the worst team he's played on. He still has Anthony Davis.
Right. He got close a couple of years ago against the Pacers, I want to say, and then he took the Cavs to the finals. I wouldn't be surprised if a series like that goes 7, kind of echoing off of what I said last week. That play-in game, that took a little bit out of the Lakers. I'm not remotely surprised they lost game 1. I would never bet against LeBron in the first round. I just wouldn't. I like the Suns team a lot too. I just, again, it's one of those things where I just sit back and enjoy. Not typically how I like to bet. Is I like to bet the things I like. I don't want to just to bet. And yeah, in theory, I would like to bet on LeBron to advance. And I would agree with you that would in general be a good bet, but it's not one I'm going to put a lot of stock into one way or the other. I wouldn't be surprised because this is the year where LeBron's coming off of a championship. Then he had the play-in game. He's also been dealing with an injury. I wouldn't be surprised if he loses in the first round. So, but
yeah, and the Suns are a team I really like. There's really nobody on that team that I'm not a fan of. I used to not be a Chris Paul fan, but seeing what that guy has done his whole career of just elevating every team he's been on, his run with OKC last year was special to watch. What he's doing with Phoenix this year is awesome. I remember the whole talk when Paul was traded to Phoenix. Everybody said, man, I wish he went to a contender. Like, why is he going to Phoenix? Like, I don't want to see this. I want Paul to win a championship. Well, like, Devin Booker, man, is the real deal. And when Paul left to go to the locker room in game 1, Booker just took over. And he does have a little bit of that Kobe mentality, that kind of, I'm going to make every shot. And he also makes the right basketball play. When they doubled him up the top of the key, he was always finding open guys. Bridges came up big. Ayton was obviously huge. Cameron Johnson played some big minutes. And the Suns team is a lot of fun to watch. And one thing they did really well was defensively, they shut down LeBron for the most part. So I like what I saw from Phoenix. I'm still in that camp, though. I'm not betting against playoff LeBron, especially in the first round. They are a 7 seed. Phoenix looked really good. LA looked really bad. I'd still be surprised to not see LeBron advance. I know a lot of people don't want to, especially because he's a drama king or drama queen, I guess is the name. And Phoenix is a lot of fun to watch. And Phoenix deserves to be good at basketball. We haven't seen a good Phoenix team in a long time since Steve Nash. So it's going to be a fun series. I love the NBA playoffs. But those are the 3 games I'm looking at. I love Milwaukee -4.5 and the under against Miami in game 2. I love Denver money line to come back and even the series at 1-1. And I'm betting a lot on the Lakers to win the series, especially on plus money. So those are my bets for the NBA. I'm sure I'll have more. Check our Facebook page, the Gramblers podcast. I'll definitely have some posts on that as well.
The other one I'm going to mention is the Clippers. I obviously in week 1 said that, or I guess week 1, we're talking our podcast like it's an NFL week. Week 1 of our podcast, I said that I expected the Clippers to make the finals, to beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Dallas won game 1 and they looked pretty good. And I didn't watch a lot of that game, but from what I did, they looked pretty good. Just a couple of years, Kawhi won it with Toronto. They lost game 1 to the Magic. In 2014, when the Spurs won in that first round series, the Mavs took them 7 games. Both those years, they did win their game 1 there. Both those years, Kawhi won Finals MVP. So he's been tested in the first round before. I love Luka. I love even Coach Carlisle. And I do like Dallas's team overall as a bunch of good role players. I don't think they're going to be, the star-ridden Kawhi and Paul George duo combo there anyway. So and Paul George, I mean, we've talked about it. He's not that overly trustworthy guy. He's kind of like that, B tier, A.5 tier kind of player anyway. But I think that he provides enough help to make the Clippers win that series. So
yeah, and I agree with you fully. I had the Clippers winning that series in 6, and the Clippers are a lot like the Lakers, where I don't think at times, even in the playoffs, they don't play with a sense of urgency. And guys like LeBron, AD, and then the Clippers, Kawhi, they just have a switch. They can just click and just be better than their opposition. But one thing I will say is Luka is going to be a top 10 player of all time. Like that guy, we're watching just his growth and how young he is and just him coming up in big moment after big moment. It's a fun time to be a Mavericks fan. I don't think they win a series this year, but next year they add another free agent, another star to pair alongside Luka. They're going to be really, really good for years to come. So
they can take DeMar DeRozan.
I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. Like nobody, but DeMar DeRozan, I can do a whole podcast on why I don't like his game.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to mention off of the Clippers Mavs series is this is where you kind of, and for your example for the Lakers Suns, this is where it's a great time to pay attention to the betting lines, because let's say for game 1, I don't remember what the Mavs Clippers line was. Do you remember that by any chance?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I think it was Clippers -6.
Okay.
I still think they're heavily favored.
I was thinking.
Clippers -6.
But so you see the Clippers -6 in game 1, the Mavs obviously cover, and money line, they beat, but a lot of times you'll see for game 2, then at that point you'll see, okay, well, yeah, the Clippers didn't look great. So maybe they move it down to 4.5 or something like that. Those are lines I like to bet. Now, again, when you're betting the team with -4.5, they have to win by at least 5 to pay you out. And that's harder to do than it sounds. But when those lines move down, let's say the Mavs take game 2, then that line might get to like a, -1.5, -2.5, something like that, where I would definitely hammer the Clippers at that point. So
yeah, there's definitely value in betting Dallas money line on game 2. Like, I don't think they're going to win, but anything can happen. I would not touch Clippers -6. I think that line is right about where it should be. I mentioned week 1, too. I love betting good teams after bad losses or close games, and it doesn't look like Vegas. I really thought much different after that game 1. Luka went off. He went crazy. Clippers didn't play that good. I think the Clippers come back and they win this game, but I can see Dallas covering the 6 points. If it was at -4, I'd probably bet it, but not at -6. But Phoenix +2. I mentioned I like the Lakers to win the series. I don't think the Lakers win the series if they don't win game 2. They go down 2-0. They still have to go back to LA, but I think they have to win game 2. Tie it up 1-1. So I like the Lakers -2 on that as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Apart from that, I mean, I was mostly focused on golf. So as far as NBA, I don't have a lot more to offer this week. And that's
why I like doing this podcast with you, because I have nothing to offer of golf.
I was going to mention that's one thing that our viewers will probably pick up on overall, is that I don't like to bet a lot of the favorite, MLB, NBA, NFL. I feel like those are where Vegas, they have a lot of people setting those lines where it becomes harder to beat Vegas. I feel like golf is a sport that, and I might have even said this exact same line last week, but golf is a sport where I can pay more attention than Vegas, necessarily does. Same thing with other individual sports, UFC, tennis. I like to bet a lot of those as well.
Russian ping pong.
Yeah. Alexander Kolesnikov. We're going to say his name every podcast. So
that's got to be a tradition.
It should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch the spreadsheets of Alexander what? Kolesnikov? There it is. Okay, I'm going to write that down and make sure I kind of know how to say his name, because I'm sure we'll bet on that again at some point in the future, right?
Poor kid. Yeah, I think he's like 20 years old.
Oh, man.
It's like
I'm already playing pro ping pong?
Yeah, it's like I'm going hard on a 20-year-old. Let's see if he has. doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Actually, I Googled his name here, and this is definitely not the same Alexander Kolesnikov. I got an Alexander Kolesnikov who works for Google and has research interests in AI, machine learning, deep learning, and computer vision. So I will not bet on Alexander Kolesnikov again, because who knows, maybe it was the same guy.
And that is the kind of content you're going to get every week on the Gramblers podcast.
Yeah.
You will find a Google worker for you.
You're looking at me like, what the hell? You're going way off topic here.
No, it's all right. Plowing ahead, as they say. So one thing I'm really excited about in this episode was talking about a couple sports that you and me really don't watch regularly that we do bet on more than not regularly, if that makes sense. You're a hockey guy. You like betting on hockey. And me, I like betting on soccer. I mentioned in week one, what got me into soccer was COVID, because all the other sports were off TV and I don't know what to bet on. It definitely wasn't going to be weather. So I decided to bring my money to soccer, and I started betting on that. We have Champions League action, but right now too, another playoff going on we haven't mentioned yet is the NHL playoffs, and NHL playoffs are almost as exciting as the NBA playoffs. I'd argue the NBA playoffs are more exciting. Most of my friends think I'm an idiot for saying that, but I will die on that hill. So what do you like this week in the NHL?
Yeah, the NHL has kind of a different playoff format this year, where they took basically the four best teams from each division, and then they kind of have their own little playoff, and then go to the next round anyway, or next stage. I think that's kind of interesting. It is kind of exciting. It's something new. I think hockey's changed it up a couple times over the years anyway. I mean, every sport changes it up a little bit. NFL just changed up theirs. MLB added the wild card game. And then last year, obviously, they made a whole new thing. So, but the NHL, the playoffs are a little bit different this year. I have a futures bet on the Vegas Golden Knights from the beginning of the season. As you can probably imagine, as a gambler, I love the city of Vegas. Vegas is to a gambler as Hollywood is to a filmmaker. So I love the city of Vegas. I kind of jokingly sometimes bet against Vegas. I say like, oh, well, Vegas wasn't built on winners, so I'll bet against them. Because, hey, they're not supposed to be winners. But no, Vegas is a really good team. I've been following them quite a bit this year. So they have two really good goalies, which I think is probably, and I think you've mentioned this before, probably the second most position in all of sports in hockey.
Yep.
In hockey or soccer on ice with sticks, however you want to call it. I guess we're playing a pretty similar game here. I think that, the goalie play is very important. Vegas's weakness, they're not super great on the power play, but I'm riding my Vegas futures bet, which is basically them winning the title. I think it was like a 10-1 at the beginning of the year. So I only had $20 on it or so, but the Avalanche just advanced. They beat the Blues. If Vegas advances, then they'll play I guess I should say when Vegas advances, because I think we'll probably be up on YouTube after that game, or well, maybe before. But Vegas will have Avalanche in the next game. Probably one of those teams will win the cup. Those are pretty much, they were the two betting favorites all season long. Avalanche got just ahead of Vegas right at the very end of the year. Vegas kind of got a slow start against Minnesota in the playoffs, and then just basically took off, and they're probably going to win that series at this point. So, but I do like betting hockey a lot. I think there's a lot of value even at so the way hockey lines are set are usually like minus a goal and a half, meaning, hey, you got to win by 2. And that becomes kind of tricky sometimes because, hey,
it's a lot like baseball.
But it becomes a little bit easier than baseball, in my opinion, just because at the end of a hockey game, if a team is down 1 goal, they're usually going to pull their goalie as like a last ditch effort to, tie it up and send it into overtime anyway. That's probably one of the most basic things a sports bettor who bets hockey would say is like, oh yeah, they should be able to, because a lot of times, hey, the game might be tied toward the third period. I usually only bet money lines in hockey anyway. That goal line, sure, it's cute, it's fun sometimes. You get a little bit better odds, better payout. I usually bet the money line just because at times, hey, it is going to be that game that goes to overtime and a shootout in the regular season. So, but it becomes one of those sports where the favorite tends to prevail quite a bit. It's a very, team oriented sport. That's and I don't necessarily see the same patterns as like NFL or NBA travel, things like that, where or matchups kind of, it's just kind of an all out, hey, these five guys are trying to score goals and these five guys can do it better than these five guys. There have been times too where it's a good sport to live bet, which I'm sure we'll talk more about on this podcast, but there's times where, okay, the favorite went down a goal early and in the second period, we're going into the second period, you can live bet them at a better odds anyway too. So it's just one of those sports where I can probably tell you 36 hockey players in the NHL, and that's not a lot considering how deep a hockey roster is. I don't know a lot about it. I probably do better on that than NBA and NFL bets. So, but not golf. Golf's my
Golf's your number one.
Golf's my sweet tea. So
yeah. Well, here's the thing: we all can't be masters of a particular sport, right? Like, there's people out there that only watch hockey. There's people out there that only watch basketball. There's people out there that only watch football. There's people out there that only watch golf. I watch basketball, football, baseball, golf, and I don't know how I still am able to keep a girlfriend because it's so much time devoted. Like, this weekend had the PGA Championship and 4 NBA playoff games on per day. I was able to watch probably 6 of them and the PGA, watch Phil capture the title as a 50-year-old. So there's just so many sports out there, which leads me into how I got to betting on soccer. That was the only sport out there for me at a time in 2020 because COVID hit and the NBA stalled, the NHL stalled, football wasn't going on, and baseball stalled. So soccer ended up playing over in Europe. The Premier League is my favorite league to watch. I can't watch MLS after watching Premier League. It's just not the same as far as a talent level. The talent pool over in Europe is way better. That's why they're more popular over there, and we're not so popular here in America. Champions League final is this weekend, and a team I loved when I was betting Premier League was Manchester City. They're playing Chelsea. Manchester City just killed Everton today. They won 5-0. They are the favorite to beat Chelsea. I bet on Chelsea a few times in 2020. They usually burn me, so I try to stay away from them. They're kind of my Atlanta Hawks of the Premier League, so I will not bet Chelsea. I really like Manchester City to win. They're -110, so I think the odds are really good. And I like Man City to score over a goal and a half. I'm not parlaying that, but that's at +120. So I like the odds on that as well. And I'm excited to watch this game, actually. I'm probably going to watch it on Saturday. It's around 2 o'clock, so I have the day off. I'm ready to watch some playoff basketball and some soccer, and then I'll watch you win some money on golf. So it should be a fun weekend for me.
Now, I feel like soccer has probably the most strategy betting, I would say, as like a sport, for example, because you mentioned Manchester City. They typically won a lot. There were a lot of times where I would see, oh, Manchester City's about to play their -286, meaning, bet 286 to win 100, basically. But I feel like there's a lot of strategy because there's 3 different bets you can make. You can bet obviously the team to win or the tie, or I'm sorry, just for the line in general. Obviously there's over-unders, things like that as well. But there's the tie line, and the tie is basically, okay, if they tie, you lose your bet still if you're betting the team. So I personally like to bet the favorite in soccer games live as well. I like it to get 20 minutes into a game, 40 minutes into a game. Okay, they're still tied 0-0. You sometimes get a better value there. I also don't watch soccer. I will bet on it from what I hear from my soccer friend fans is that, yeah, a lot of times you will see a goal in the last minute or two because that's when defenses are tired and, kind of break down. So sometimes there's like that heavy value play right at the last like 5 minutes of, okay, it's tied. Let's bet on both teams at this point. Is there a way you like to bet soccer typically, or?
No, because I usually don't watch the whole game. When I'm live betting, I need to watch the game. So I'm sure we'll do a whole segment on live betting. Like one of my favorite things to live bet is in the NFL when I have a team I really like. Let's say it's the Chiefs, and let's say the Chiefs are, minus 250 on the money line, which they usually are pretty high because they're most of the time the favorites. I'll say they're playing Baltimore and Baltimore strikes first. I love to hammer the Chiefs. So I pick a team I want to bet on the money line. I may bet on the spread. I may not touch it. And I'll watch the game. And if they don't score first, and then I love to hammer it. I don't do that in soccer, though, just because I don't know it that well.
Sure.
I've only recently started betting on soccer. I just kind of know the teams and who I like and who has won me money in the past and who has not. And more times than not, Chelsea has failed me. And I do have a few friends that talk about Chelsea choking all the time. So they kind of remind me of Atlanta.
I've been there with you too, so.
Yeah, so I will not touch a Chelsea game. I will not touch Chelsea. I will touch plenty of Chelsea games, especially if Manchester City's playing. So I like Manchester City. I like them to score some goals. I usually don't bet unders on soccer because though my whole life I hated soccer because there weren't enough goals scored. So I just kind of do that for me. Like I hate betting unders in soccer because most games are low scoring anyways. I don't want to root for a lower scoring game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So I always bet the over for the most part. So if Manchester City can go out and I can root for them to score 2 goals, it's going to make my viewing a lot more fun, whether I'm winning money or losing money. And I'm not parlaying it. So if I don't hit the over and Manchester City still wins, I still win some. At least I win my money back, right? So
yeah. Now for me, when I bet soccer too, is I like to not really pay as much attention to it. I think for me, betting soccer or Russian ping pong, for example, there's kind of a breath of fresh air just because I can kind of just briefly pay attention to it on Google. I can't always find it on television. Usually weekends like Saturday morning, soccer's on. You can find a soccer game on, but there's a lot of times where it's like a random, 2 Wolfenstein versus Parma. I mean, those are 2 teams, but I don't know if they even play each other. But you have those games where you're not going to find them on television at all, kind of thing, or like tennis, for example, a lot of that is overnight because it's overseas. So it's like, okay, I'm betting on something that's going to happen at 3:00 in the morning and I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to wake up. You never have to sweat out those bets. So I think that's my favorite thing about betting those things in general: tennis, soccer, ping pong, even some golf, like overseas European tour. If you're going to bet on that, you don't have to sweat it out. You don't have to see, your team choke. Like I had the Knicks today -1.5 against the Atlanta Hawks, and then the Hawks were shooting better down the stretch. So I was sweating it out and I was screaming at my TV, "Let's go." Then it was, "Dang it." Then it was, "Let's go." Then it was, "Dang it." That happens a lot with those mainstream sports that in America, obviously soccer is not number one. Russian ping pong is not number one. Tennis is not number one. You don't have to sweat. I appreciate that. I don't know if you feel the same or different about that.
no, I feel different about that. Actually, I love sweating bets. I
Yeah.
love it. And I live for it. I mean, I am a Bears fan, so I know firsthand what heartbreak is. I am a Bulls fan, and I started becoming a Bulls fan like late '90s after Jordan left. So I know what heartbreak is. So I actually enjoy sweating the bets. I love the process. I really do. Whether I put $10 on a game or $150 a game, I want to win it so bad. I love watching it live and seeing it happen. I can't look away. I am a lot like Adam Sandler and Uncut Gems, where I am focused on that game and I'm looking for my bet to hit, and that's just how it goes for me. But I will humble brag a little bit, Aaron, and I'm sure you'll get me back on this. I just want to say I did pick the Hawks to win the series. They are up 1-0. And when Bogdan hit that 3, I was thinking of you.
I'm not remotely worried. Julius Randle didn't show up today, so
No, he was
I
bad.
didn't bet it either. So I guess I
Yeah,
wouldn't be sweating anyway.
yeah, for
But
sure, for sure.
no, I deserve every bit of that humble brag. I mean, I think it should be more of a smack talk brag at this point, but
Well, I'm not going to smack talk you yet because I do think this
yeah,
series is
you're
going
gonna
to come
talk
down
me
to
off
it.
the podcast on week 2, the over
Right?
under.
No, not going to do that. I need you. I need you for the golf picks, man.
Yeah, golf picks. That's all I'm not good for this weekend. We know that. So.
Oh no, it was fun. I love the parlay conversation. NBA playoffs are rolling. I'm glad we got some hockey and some soccer in too. Diversify a little bit. I did wear my Hall of Fame hockey shirt, which I did go to when I spent time in Toronto, watching the Bucks and Raptors. So I was excited to do episode 2 here with you, and looking forward to keep this podcast going, man.
Yeah, Cody, you have a wonderful week. I hope you win some bets apart from any Atlanta Hawks versus New York Knicks bets you make. So
The only thing I'm betting on in the Hawks Knicks are Trey Young overs.
yeah, yeah, and those will probably be pretty good. One last point, I think, and
Yep.
you mentioned Chris Paul earlier and playing in OKC. I don't know if you caught it on the broadcast or if you were listening.
Dude, I know where you're going with this. Yep.
They talked about how Trey Young looked up to Chris Paul, and when he was a kid and he played in OKC. Well, Chris Paul played in
Yeah.
OKC last year. And
I was
Trey
like, you
Young
mean the
was
Hornets?
already in the league. So I was dying laughing at that. I was
Yeah.
like, and broadcasting's tough. I mean, I'm not one to slam guys over the top like, hey,
No.
he should have never said that. I mean, there's things where you get things mixed up, and Chris Paul did at times play in OKC as a visitor, but I found that probably to be one of the funniest things I've heard on an NBA broadcast in a while.
And OKC is blue, and the Hornets were blue too when he was in New Orleans. So I get it. Hey, I did play-by-play for a while on some semi-pro sports, some high school broadcast. My first hockey game, I called the puck a ball 7 times because I was so used to doing basketball. So,
Yeah.
like, it happens. You're going to mess up. I think so far the broadcasts have been great. I mean, the Hawks Knicks game was just so much fun to watch, going back and forth down the stretch, and all the calls were for the most part pretty good, except for Chris Paul being on the Thunder when Trey Young was a kid, which was last year, and now Young is.
Yeah, I hope he wasn't looking up to a player on a different team when he was in league as him. But we all make mistakes. So
No, absolutely. And Julius Randle made a lot of those today. So
yeah.
I don't see him doing that. I will say, though, I was very happy for Derrick Rose hitting that floater to tie the game. That was really cool to see because that's my MVP, man.
Oh, Jokic was your MVP.
Yeah, but Rose and I go way back. So
yeah, I know you do. I know you.
Yeah.
Do. So.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, another great episode in the books. Guys, thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, and we'll get these podcasts up shortly on Apple and on Spotify as well. So that's going to do it here for episode 2 of the Gramblers podcast. Make sure to catch us every single week right here on YouTube, and follow our Facebook page, the Gramblers Podcast on Facebook. That's Aaron Graff. I'm Cody Grant. I'll do it again for another episode of the Gramblers Podcast.
Peace.